Thanks very much, Rishi. Patrick, is there anything you want to add at this stage? Or we'll thank you very much. We'll just go straight to questions then. Is Laura Kuenssberg? Yes, please, Laura Kuenssberg from the BBC.
Thank you very much. Chancellor and Prime Minister, you've just announced a vast package of support. But I know that you said the loan scheme should be up and running next week. You said you'll have more measures to come up in the coming days. But can you guarantee to firms who need to pay wages now and families who worry about paying the rent now that they will not lose out while you work through the details of what comes next? And a question, if I may, to Sir Patrick. Obviously, the scientific advice changed dramatically in the last couple of days. But do you have any regrets about not taking more draconian measures sooner?
Well, just on the first point, Laura, which was to me and to Rishi, be in no doubt that the state is asking people to do something to make very considerable changes to their lives, and it is only right, therefore, that the state should stand behind people as they make those changes. And that's what a government, that's what a society is there to do. It's there to look after people through thick and thin and to make sure that we get through this together, and that's what we're going to do.
If I could just add, Laura, you're absolutely right that people should have access to the support they need as quickly as possible. That's why when all the interventions that we designed at budget and today, we've had in our mind the ability to execute and operationalise them as soon as possible. There's no good having measures which sound brilliant but ultimately can't be delivered in time given the pace of what we're dealing with. What I would say for people who urgently need help is to do two things. One is to talk to their local authorities if they're in a particularly vulnerable position. Local authorities are well placed to provide direct support through their assistance schemes, and as we announced at budget last week, an extra £500 million is going to local authorities to supplement the support that they already give. And with regards to their creditors and banks, we have had extensive discussions with the banks who understand the situation that people are in, and will, they have assured me, provide flexibility to those people in those circumstances and understanding.
And in answer to the second question, we laid out at the beginning the package of measures that would need to be looked at, and we said they need to come in at the right time and they need to come in the right combination. And what we've said is that the stage of the epidemic is now onto the fast upstroke. We are at the stage where these need to come in. They need to come in forcibly as they have done, and that's the right action to take at the right time. And the other packages that we've talked about, the other things that may be also necessary, may also need to come in, so that this is a fast-moving situation in which we need to take the right decisions at the right time of this epidemic, and it's clearly one that's a very serious situation.
Thanks. Sam Coates, Sky News.
Sam Coates, Sky News. Question for each of you. Sir Patrick, the jaw-dropping piece of research from Imperial College yesterday suggested that we would go to that the only option was to go for a suppression strategy, which could take up to 18 months, and was there for that long because we were looking for a vaccine. Is that how you see it? Is a vaccine the goal as you understand it? Mr. Sunak, you've suggested a package that in part will be valid for 3 months. Is that how long you see this crisis lasting? And you're offering predominantly loans. How are businesses ever going to pay stuff back given the nature of this crisis? And Prime Minister, some people came away from yesterday's briefing somewhat confused about guidance, for instance, for the elderly.
Right.
Do you accept that the buck stops absolutely with you in this crisis, and do you take responsibility for the actions of your father?
Right. I think I've got a bit of Patrick, why don't you go first?
Yes, so the work from Imperial, clearly that work's been feeding into SAGE since the very beginning of the process. Neil Ferguson's been on the SAGE committee, and so it was something that we looked at, we asked for that piece of work to come through that particular piece. And just to be clear, what suppression in that paper refers to is exactly what we've been talking about, which is squashing this right down and making sure that we give room for the NHS to cope. And that's what the message is. In terms of the time frame, this needs to be done in a way that we can look at releasing it at some point and seeing what the effect is. And none of us anywhere in the world know how to do that yet in terms of whether it bounces back or not at that point. So that's what's going to have to happen after we've got this under control, is to look at how you then release these measures at the right time to monitor the effects. In terms of vaccines, and vaccines are the answer to this, it's remarkable the progress that's been made. It's only probably 3 or 4 years ago when the standard answer would be it takes 20 years to make a vaccine. It's now the case that there's a vaccine in the UK that may go into the clinic for first testing in April. I still believe we will be lucky to get a vaccine for mass use in a year from the start of this. That would be extraordinary. But there is progress. There are multiple different types of vaccines, and there are other approaches as well which are being looked at, which may provide protection. So there's a lot going on. As the Prime Minister has said, it's crucial that we support that research to get this into the right place to be able to treat people now, which may be possible with existing drugs, and to promote vaccines.
Sam, thanks for the question. On the 3-month thing for the mortgage holidays, I think that's just one start, and that's just one aspect of the package. Obviously, as the situation evolves, we will review absolutely everything. But I would defer to Patrick in terms of timing for what we believe the right spread of the virus to be. To your broader point about what's the right shape of an economic response package, I want to think about it in a few different ways. One is we've got monetary policy and then we've got fiscal policy. And I think what you saw last week was, in comparison with many jurisdictions around the world, you saw the UK showing global leadership in a coherent, coordinated approach between monetary and fiscal policy, which I think has a multiplier effect beyond the individual measures, and I think that was noticed. So I think in that sense, there's been very significant monetary policy action already. You saw that coordination again today. As I said, we've worked on a very particular financing scheme with the Bank of England, again showing that the two arms of economic policy can work together to provide support. And then you can benchmark what we're doing with other countries around the world. There's a mix of loan schemes are important because ultimately businesses need to have liquidity to get through what is a difficult bridge. But we have unveiled, I think, what would benchmark as a very comprehensive and sizable package of direct fiscal support for business through tax reliefs and cash grants. As I said today, £25,000 for retail, leisure and hospitality businesses up to 51k, £10,000 for several hundred thousand businesses eligible for small business rate relief, and that comes on top of business rates holidays that we've given to several hundred thousand businesses, compensation for statutory sick pay, and also, as I said today, we plan to go further with regard to employment support and supporting people's jobs and incomes, and we want to work with business and the unions to achieve that. And again, that will be very significant direct fiscal action. So I think actually if you look around, we're doing the right things. It needs to be a balance of all measures, but we want to be best in class on all of them.
Yeah, fine, Sam. Of course the buck stops with me, and I take full responsibility for all the actions that this government is taking, all the decisions we're taking, difficult though many of them are, and all the advice we're giving to everybody. And what I'd say to people who are thinking about this advice, the more we follow the advice of our scientific and medical advisors, and the more closely we do what they tell us to do, the better our chances collectively of slowing the disease, of protecting the NHS, and of saving life. And also, of course, the better we can protect our NHS, the less economic damage there will ultimately be. And of course, people care about pubs, and they're right to care about pubs and restaurants. But that is why we're announcing the package, the extraordinary package that Rishi has just unveiled today. That is the way that we should be working to look after our economy.